Good day all, Namaskar. In continuation of our this series of ISO 27001 2022 recent changes, we are um, covering this 11 new control, and some of the control we have already discussed in our previous videos. You can just go through and then check my previous video. And today we'll quickly talk about one control, that is A 8.10 information deletion, right? And this is a new control which is being introduced into this revised standard. Now let understand what this control is all about first. What it says. So this control requires you to delete data when no longer required in order to avoid leakage of sensitive information and to enable compliance with privacy and other requirements. This could include deletion in your IT system, removable media and cloud service. Okay, so very simple and fairly straightforward. Any organization, right? Any organization have so much of information and data. So every organization have this information and data, and then as per the data classification, they have data identified as sensitive, critical, right? And then they process this data for organization business purposes, right, as per the client requirement or as per the contract requirement, and they process data to give value to the ultimate client. Now one point which is very important, right? This information is available into the organization and it is prone to leak, right? So the point here is, if for example, just to understand simple example, if you are driving, there is a always chance that you may have accident, right? So in such a way, if you have data in your organization custody, there is always chance that hacker may try to steal this data to harm the organization, right? So it is very important that organization look into this type of data classification based on data sensitivity and criticality, and see that if information is not needed for any business, for future business, right? So this information is deleted securely from all of the system where the data has been processed, right? So either it is IT system, either it is removable media. Removable media means if you have offsite backup and you have your hard disk, right, which are there, and you take backup and then store somewhere else offsite as per your backup policy, or USB drive, whatever it is. And then the cloud service, you have to keep in mind that either you are using very small cloud services or very in a very complex manner, very high need is there in your organization for the cloud. You have to cater all the uses of the cloud services which is being used in your organization, and see that even if it is very minimum uses, right, if you are using very minimum uses of this cloud services in your organization, you have to have cater and delete if any sensitive data is lying there. And very important to understand here is when we say why this is very important to delete this data, because if you are dealing with any, for example, any EU resident or data, so as per GDPR, there is a legal, GDPR is General Data Processing Regulation. It is mandate to delete data which is sensitive or personal data which is sensitive in nature if thus not needed for any purpose further. So, when I say any process further process purpose further which is legitimate in interest or you can say that is not required as per the contract of client. So, that is not needed for the purpose of fulfilling the contract requirement. So, as per the law or regulation, there is a need that you have to have delete data to see that the data is has been taken care as per the legal and the regulatory requirement. So, this is very important. So, this clause give you this control to see that where your important and sensitive data is lying, and then if it is not needed as per the contract or any legal requirement or regulatory requirement, needed as per the legal and regulatory requirement, you have to delete this personal or sensitive information, sensitive data which is there from your all the systems. Now, understand what the technology this need to implement this information deletion, meet this control. So, you should be using tools for secure deletion according to regulatory or contractual requirement or in line with your risk assessment, right. So, it is very important that let understand this way. So, if you have contract with client and its contract, it is explicitly mentioned that you have to delete or this information at the time of at this frequency and with this method, any method, right, purging or physical destruction or by encryption method, whatever it is, then you have to have follow this method and the way of and the at defined frequency to delete this data. Now, if it is something legal or regulatory requirement like as per GDPR or CCPA or any other country specific regulation, if you are dealing with that and then its country specific law says that you have to have delete this information in such way, then you have to follow that process. And it is very important that you organization keep eye for specific regulation which they are operating in or they are providing services to their client, because this is the ultimate the highest requirement which supersede every requirement, and the client and organization has to meet this requirement. Now, the third is if client is not mentioning and the legal requirement is not there, so organization itself they have their own data like financial, right, or HR or admin record. So, they have to see that they have defined the frequency and responsibility and method that when it going to be deleted and through what mechanism. So, this is very important. And also we always say that everything start with the risk assessment. So, based on the risk assessment, if it is high sensitive information in an organization, you have to have very secure method to delete this data. If it is something low risk data, then you may have very little dilute method to delete this information. Okay. Now, coming to the processes part, as per ISO 27000 standard, there is no mandatory documentation requirement as such, but it is always suggestive that you should set up a process that will define which data need to be deleted when, and define responsibility and method for deletion that we have discussed here, right, in brief. So it is very important that you have to have data classification in place with the, we'll say that it is sensitive and critical data, and then once you have this sensitive data, then you have to have frequency and the retention mechanism in place, and frequency when it is going to be deleted, and then who is responsible to do this, right? It is very important that who is responsible. Like in HR case, HR head is responsible, HR head is responsible. In finance case, if finance head is responsible, because finance head is responsible. Why? Because finance record HR or admin cannot touch upon, like HR record may be possible, finance or any other department is not have access to. So responsibility should be defined, and then method of deletion. So based on the sensitivity data class, based on sensitivity of data, the method need to be defined so that this data is securely deleted. Okay. Now once you have this everything in place, again because this is new control and this is revised standard, every person, those who is involved, should be trained enough, make aware that why deleting sensitive information is important, and train them how to do this properly. So first of all, every person should be aware in the organization that what is the sensitive information and that what is needed at organization level for this sensitive information. And first they have to have awareness that what is considered as a sensitive or the critical information in organization, right? And once they have this understanding, then they have to have understand that what is their own responsibility to dispose or delete this information in secure way through the method defined in process at what frequency, right? Now one important aspect in this training, once you have this deletion and this method in place, the responsible person should be trained to on this method and mechanism to follow fully and in the correct way. So you can have some work instruction in place, or that step or the flow, that how this information should be deleted in such way that based on the sensitivity the person is using the right way to delete the data in right method. Okay. Now coming to this documentation requirement, so we can have small organization and the large organization, to understand. It is not like this small organization cannot have this dedicated process or policy which is there suggested in large organization, but so they can have their own policy altogether, but you may have this disposal and destruction policy already in place, or can define some where you can say that how the information or removable media is deleted, right? So this is very important. Acceptable use policy, how regular user need to delete the sensitive information on their computer and mobile devices. So in acceptable use policy you can cover this instruction that and the part where you can mention that what step need to be followed and by the employees on regular basis to delete sensitive information from their endpoint and mobile devices if they are using. Okay. And then security operating procedures, how system administrator need to delete the sensitive information on server network, right? So this is one is covered like for employees, right? So this is covered, the system they are using endpoint means laptop, right, and desktop, and then their mobile devices. And for the company network, and servers where the data is lying, or the cloud servers or VMs or cloud instances, right? Data need to be deleted by the system admin or the cloud admin, whatever the roles you have. So, they have to have so it should be defined in your security operating procedure. And large organization, as it is good to have the data retention policy where you can define that which data based on the sensitivity of information retained as per the contract or law, legal and regulatory requirement, and then define how long each type of information is needed and when it is need to be deleted, right. So, this controls you can update in your existing processes, or if you do not have any policy or process, you can have create new. So, first is acceptable use policy. The second is security operating procedure, you can update for your admin, and you can have disposal and destruction policy. Okay. And you can have your data retention policy in place. Okay. So, I think now we have high level understanding how to take care this control and implement, and then why this control is very important for the organization, keeping in this new law regulations coming in place. Thank you very much. See you in the next video, and thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much.